Well, here we are. We're recording with Matt's new camera. I've nicked it off him. And we're going to be doing a little video. What? Too late, I'm doing it. Check out this new stuff we've got. So we've got this 4K camera that we're recording on now. And we've got our own little cinema lights. This is the video we're going to be recording. As you can clearly see, it's not airsoft. Matt, what are you doing?
Getting the ladder.
Getting the ladder. See, because Matt's so small compared to me, he needs the ladder. He's tiny. Pardon?
You had a ladder.
I had a ladder.
Problem is, your ladder actually.
It's our technical stuff. Check out Matt's Ace House. It's awesome. This is also where we do all the training, fighting, stuff like that. It is. It's really good.
Large scape.
And your mom loves it when we bring all the weapons around.
Oh, she loves it.
But she'll never be watching the videos anyway, so that's all right. Cool.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. It is afternoon. It was supposed to be morning.
Not my fault. The bed was warm.
Well, good afternoon. Welcome to the third episode of Brotherhood of Steel. And this one, we're going to be introducing you to reenacting, which
Absolutely.
is, I think, is still currently, is it fair to say it's our biggest hobby? We've got more stuff with it. Definitely.
Yeah, it's definitely, if we had to sell an internal organ for the airsoft, this is actually selling the rest of the organs and whatever's left, then letting that be used for scientific and medical research.
Yeah, this is, and I think the more...
Especially as I'm looking at your sword collection and I know how much each of those is.
Yeah, just to be clear, on previous videos with airsoft, the majority of it, if not all of it, was Andreas's. We were at his house, we're currently at mine. This is all mine, and it's not even half.
No, and I've still got all my stuff as well.
Yeah, the majority of the armour isn't here. I've still got some weapons.
Yeah. We've got armour being built for us.
Yeah.
I've got other armour on order.
Yeah, we've got pole arms, we've got spears, we've got the clothes.
Codpiece.
Yeah, we've got so much stuff. Yeah. So this is just a selection from my personal supply. Before
we jump in the video though, I want to give a big shout out to Gary Airsoft Camman. He really kindly gave us a shout out on his channel.
Yes.
He didn't have to do that, but as a fellow airsofter and another Suffolk lad, really appreciate it. So I'm going to put a link for his channel down below. Go check him out, subscribe, give him a thumbs up, give him a support as well. He puts out some very good content.
Yes.
And he plays locally as well, so chances are you're going to bump into him and get on one of his videos.
Yeah. We are on these videos, aren't we? And yeah, as you say, there's quite a few fun
In fact, the very first time I went airsofting, I was on one of his videos, shooting a guy so hard with my AK, I made him dance. And then he put that to Irish music.
Yeah, it was brilliant.
And so I might post that link for that video below as well, because it's hilarious.
Definitely. See if you can spot Andreas in it.
You might be able to. Didn't have any gear on properly.
No.
And the latest video I'm in, I kind of slide in, get caught up in a load of thorns, my trousers get pulled down slightly, and you get to see my ass. Anyway, reenactment.
Yes. Well, yeah. So I think the main thing to really say in this video about reenactment is it is how we met.
It is.
This is how we this began. This friendship.
As my kids call it, the bromance.
Yeah, the bromance began, how long ago? 2.5 years?
Was it 2? Yeah, over 2.5 years.
2.5 years, not long ago. So yeah, this is kind of, it's how we got together, our love for this, and we pretty much, I mean, I do other reenactments as well. You've done some other reenactments. Mm-hmm. You are doing other reenactments.
Yeah, I started with the Dark Age stuff with sort of Vikings and Saxons, but very quickly realised that my fighting style really did lend itself to something a lot more physical, and we were introduced through a mutual acquaintance to the Oxfords in the 15th century in the War of the Roses Federation.
Yeah.
And we both fell in love with, well, basically covering ourselves in steel and beating the living hell out of each other.
Yeah, there is something. I mean, the Dark Ages in the 15th century are one of the few that actually do full contact fighting. So it's competitive, full contact. We are hitting each other and competing against each other. And I quite like the 15th.
Yeah, we're not just going tap.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know.
And it's just being in all the padding and all the plate armour of 15th century, you can let yourself go without the fear of actually severely injuring someone. This stuff, it works. It really does. And it takes a massive beating. It's not foolproof in any way, and you can still injure each other, but you can let yourselves go and enjoy the competition without fear of doing any severe damage.
I mean, as far as the safety side goes, you know, my oldest, Josh, he's had, when he was playing rugby, he's had more serious injuries through playing rugby at his high school than doing reenactment. And he's been doing reenactment as long as I have.
Yeah, apart from that one injury.
Well, that was a axe to the chest without any plate on, and it kind of bruised and cracked his sternum. But he carried on. He carried on. But
yeah, but we've also, it's not just the fighting that has brought us into it, is it? We there's the historical love for it. We both love history, and also.
Would I be fair to say that? I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the love of history and realising that actually what we taught at school is relevant but really boring.
It is.
But that thirst for learning more about history, what it feels like to wear the stuff.
Yeah.
Can you fight for days and days in armour, and you know, what does the food taste like? Is wool really that itchy? You know, all that sort of stuff really kind of made me want to learn more, and that's how I got into reenactment. What about yourself?
Well, I've got quite a bit of a story with mine.
We've always got a story.
Always.
I hope you're sitting comfortably.
This might go on. But the first time I saw a reenactor, I must have been 5 or 6. My mum took me to, it was close to Dover, it was definitely in the south coast, and I saw a Roman reenactor, and he let me hold his arm, look at his arm and hold his sword. And from that day on, it's always been in the back of my thought. It really connected to me. And I'm very fortunate. There's a man who lives in my town who's the leader of one of my groups who does Dark Age reenacting, and through him I managed to join in.
And Alan's a damn good fighter.
Yeah,
he is.
And he's a great mentor and such. And he encouraged me to do it. He showed me what it was and such, and showed me that I could do it. I think that's a lot of problems with young attitudes is they see it, they want to do it, but they don't think they can, so they don't go for it.
No, and actually your mentor Alan Mosley, will give him a shout out. And he was obviously my original mentor as well.
Yeah.
And you know, it wasn't anything that he did wrong or anything like that I moved on. It was just, you know, personal choice. But the way he started me and Josh with training and getting used to the weight of the weapons, getting used to the weight of the helmets and things like that, and then building us up, and then building up our speed and our stamina.
Yeah.
It was done in a very controlled way, and actually I was quite amazed how short a period of time we could do a 4-hour training session and not really need to stop and collapse on the floor.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of tricks, isn't there, to learn, and I'm sure anyone who does ours at the gym or any sport will tell you what those are. Those just little things you can do just to keep yourself going longer.
Yeah.
And I think it's also the enjoyment out of it.
Oh
yeah. You are recording, and
I think that's going to be going in the bloopers. Sorry, minions. Always turn your phone off.
I think I should probably do that as well.
Right. Done. Are you done?
Yes. but mine didn't go off, so that's fine.
Then why have you started blushing?
Because I should really know.
We're still learning.
But yeah.
So,
and
it's reminding me to give my father-in-law his tablets. So,
are you going to give them to?
he's already got them.
Okay.
Right. So, question for you then. Let's start with the soft kit and work our way through. And I'm bit of an interview thing for you. Okay.
All right.
So, you know, obviously, we're always told wool's really itchy. But obviously there are so many different types of wools and also how it's processed. Personally, what have you found with wool? You know, how comfortable is it?
It really does depend, isn't it? I mean, the thing that annoys me most is people seem to think our ancestors were not very clever.
Oh,
we know that they were, you know, massively clever. They were doing all sorts of things, and
they were as clever as we are now.
Yeah.
But they had different types of technology.
Yeah, and they had to do certain things because we don't have to now with more technology and such. So the wool they had, especially earlier periods, is much finer than people think, and it is quite comfortable.
It is very comfy.
Yeah.
You know what? So I've done a little bit of World War II reenactment. The wool that was used, you know, less than 100 years ago,
yeah,
I personally find that a lot more scratchy than the authentic wool and dye that we've used for the Dark Age stuff and the 15th century stuff.
Yeah, I wonder now that you say it, I wonder if that's because it was mass produced and it had to be produced quickly.
Possibly, and
cheaply.
And the wool, some people might say, well, yeah, but it's all reenactment wool, it's all 21st century wool.
No,
but the wool that I'm actually talking about is a jacket that I've touched and felt and everything, and it's actually a real Second World War jacket. It's 70 odd years old.
Yeah.
And it is a lot more scratchy.
Yeah, and I mean with the other societies, they're very of course it varies from society to society and what you're trying to do, but the ones we're with are very strict on what wools you are allowed to use because authenticity. So pure Irish wools, Irish linens and things like that. Yeah. You have to look at what it is you're buying.
Yeah. You can't have a cotton mix, can you?
Yeah. No, not at all. And yeah, I mean wool. I mean linen in particular. I quite like all my linen clothes. They feel very nice. Yeah.
I mean, what about, you know, when you're wearing the wool and you're wearing it on a rainy day and it gets wet?
Well, wool works really well against water, doesn't it? It repels it to some extent. It keeps you warm despite being wet. Yeah. Which is a key thing. I mean, certainly in the times of the Anglo-Danes and such, it was a lot colder, and there was less protection from the weather and such. But no, it works. It really does.
It gets heavy, doesn't it? When it gets wet, it does get heavy.
And it takes forever to dry.
But surprisingly, we've both been absolutely, and we are talking dripping wet. Yeah. But we were still warm, weren't we?
Yeah, yeah, and you can, if it's pouring down with rain, you can still wrap yourself up in it and just sit somewhere and go to sleep, and it will keep you warm.
Yes, even though you're wet.
Yeah. Yeah, so, you know, it worked, which is why they wore it in the first place.
Yes, absolutely. Whereas the modern stuff, you know, nylon and cotton and stuff, when this gets wet, that's it. It's sucking all the heat out of you. Yeah. Yeah, and yeah, we live in a world of luxuries, don't we? And it's more those luxuries that takes preference over function quite often. Well, what about the flip side of the coin? What about heat? We've both been to Detling when it was roasting hot, and people were worrying about dehydration, and we were all there in wool. How did you find it?
Not bad, to be honest. It's more, the real problem is keeping the sun off you more than what you're wearing.
Yes.
It's like in the desert, isn't it? In the desert, you don't walk around hardly wearing anything to keep you cool, do you? You have to wear lots of layers.
You actually cover up,
from the sun. Yeah. It's more keeping yourself hydrated, which you'd have to do regardless of what material you're wearing. So it doesn't actually make a great deal of difference. You just need something on your head.
I personally find with wool that I heat up to a certain point. And while I'm heating up to that certain point, it's a little uncomfortable. Yeah. But once I hit that certain point, I'm done then. the wool almost regulates my own temperature. It's almost like a not wicker ball, but it thermoregulates me. It won't let me get hotter than that unless I start running around. And I find actually I can adjust to it within half an hour, 45 minutes, and then I'm fine. And as you said, it's just covering up.
Yeah, I mean, whenever I go to a show, I take every opportunity to be in armour, so I'm not entirely sure what it's like.
Yeah, we're having breakfast, and there's Matt's gauntlets, sword on his belt. The rest of us are still hungover.
Yeah, leather tunics, chainmail. I've got armour,
You like
sword
your leather,
on.
don't you?
Yeah. Well, there's something we're not rating. Yeah, cool. Yeah, what should we talk about next?
Well, that's the soft kit. What about footwear?
Footwear is very surprising. Again, it's something people seem to think that the further back you go, the less primitive and such. But yeah, we've got a few examples here. We've got some early Dark Age shoes. This is Anglo-Saxon time.
Yeah.
So
If you notice History Channel, they don't have massive boots. And also on the bottom, unlike in the Vikings series, they don't have Vibram soles for hiking. I'm sorry, that really bugs me. And also, what's with the bloody Spanish conquistador helmets? On the Sorry.
Calm down.
And the spray, rather than wearing metal chain, they're wearing wool that's sprayed silver.
Yeah, I can't deal with that.
Are actors really that wimpy now? Yes, I know. Sorry. It's something we shout about a lot, isn't it?
I tend to enjoy the programme, but okay. Leave my shoes alone. They're new.
Oh, they're new?
They're new.
That's why they don't smell.
I know. I had to buy some new ones, and these ones are from Merchants of Menace, and they are absolutely gorgeous, fantastic shoes. Definitely recommend them. I would recommend that you try them on before you buy them, because when we went, my shoe size is 12, but these are actually 14. 12 wouldn't fit me.
Yeah.
So definitely go.
But the leather will shrink slightly, won't it?
Yeah.
When they get
stretch.
wet, it shrinks slightly, but at the same time, it also stretches around the shape of your foot. It doesn't crush your toes like a modern shoe.
Yeah, you usually, I mean, with modern shoes, you've got to break them in, don't you? But for these, I mean,
get them wet, and that's
just
it.
Get them wet and just wear them for the day. And as time goes on, they just stretch more and more until they just fit perfectly.
But the leather is very, very supple, and it's very, very comfortable to wear them. They breathe fantastically. The only downside from a modern point of view, we're used to modern shoes that have soles that are shaped to our feet. They probably have a slight heel on them. If you're a lady, you've probably got large heel. But these are basically just a slightly tougher leather on the bottom. I personally find if I walk the same way, so modern human walks with its heel first, so kind of heel, toe, that if I walk that way with historical shoes, with period shoes, I actually get a bruised heel. But if I walk the way I do on the beach, for example, when I don't have any shoes on, where you actually put the ball of the ball of your foot down first before the heel goes down, that actually it then becomes really comfortable, and I also slip over less.
It's that thing, isn't it? Because we were talking to someone about it. Well, we actually walk differently with our shoes on than without.
Yes.
Which is very interesting to see, and actually, it's not very good for us modern day shoes. Is that the way this research is going?
There's a lot of people that are now starting to do, for lack of knowledge, say free running, and they will actually run without shoes on. Obviously, it toughens up their soles, so they don't get hurt or cut feet. But through doing that, they actually run differently, and they walk differently as well. And they've realised that actually modern shoes actually have changed the way we walk.
Yeah.
And because of the way we walk, it also affects our backs and stuff like that. So I don't know if there is full-on research, but it was just a documentary that I saw into it.
Yeah, something interesting. I think the only other thing to mention with reenactment shoes is certain surfaces they can slip on, but again...
Wet grass.
But again, a lot of that is because it's modern materials, isn't it? So yeah, this is 15th century fire-high boots.
Sorry, I've got to hold it in a really weird... Matt is not a lady of the night. This isn't his kinky boots.
No,
But again, but it's as you can see, it's a thicker leather sole. But this one, rather than being stitched in, it's actually nailed in and then pinned over. It's a lot longer, and you tend to fold them over, don't you?
Yeah, it depends what I'm using for. When I'm fighting and got the leg plate on, I tend to bring them back up so the leg plate is over them. Just an extra bit of padding. But walking around, yeah, I tend to drop them down a bit, and it really just depends. The weather, when it's raining, you want them up and such.
Yeah.
They are
You
quite
kind of feel quite cool in them though. They're
Oh, yes.
almost a bit piratical.
Yeah, yeah, and I think the only real problem is just getting them on and off, because of course leather shrinks and expands to you. If you spend the day fighting in the rain and they've started drying, they start shaping themselves to your foot, and they'd be a bit of a pain to get off.
That's when always going together is good, because like you lie down on the floor while someone grabs your boot and actually yank it off you, and
the reason why squires were invented.
Yeah, dislocate your hip in the process. But it's cool. So that's just a quick rundown. But obviously, then little things like the type of belt you use, the type of leather, any colouring, any, let's say, bling, any jewellery or anything like that is all down to personal choice, isn't it?
Yeah,
so
and
you can
what
create your
status-
own character.
Yeah, exactly. It's what you're trying to portray.
As you've done here on your belt, you've got this
Yep.
lovely. Is it Saxon?
That is Danish.
Danish.
That is from Denmark historically, and
Danish is Denmark?
You tricking me?
Sorry, sarcasm sign. Big Bang Theory.
Oh, God. This is what he tends to do. I'll say something. and
Hashtag sarcasm.
He'll throw it in there just to trip me up, and it's like, wait, have I said something wrong? No, I haven't. Shut up. But yeah, my Dark Age character is someone who's come over from Denmark to invade, part of the Viking invasion force, and all of his descendants would have still carried on the same brooches and such as a family heirloom, so it would have been passed down even to the point of the Norman period. So
and you've got some 15th century bling here.
Yep, I've got the Oxford's boar and the star representing the De Vere household in my nice hats, because of course by this point everybody wore a hat. You shouldn't be wearing you shouldn't have.
Well, it's also it's not Sunday, so we don't get. Yeah, we actually get, if we on a reenactment weekend, if we don't wear a hat on the Sunday, we get fined.
Yes.
50p.
Hey,
Has to go to the priest. Yeah. Hi, Chris. It's not Sunday. But he's actually our priest and our pimp as well, isn't he?
Yeah.
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 Let's not go there. Right. Okay. So that's soft kit. Now the bit that everyone's probably on here for and are like, shut up, forward in the video.
Yeah, skip the first 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Or 10 minutes.
When it comes to sort of airsoft and stuff like that, I'm a little bit more knowledgeable.
Yeah, I will usually defer to Andreas.
But when it comes to swords and armour, Matt's the guy.
This is where my knowledge gets tested, isn't it?
It really is. It's also where we think this video is going to go on for like 50 minutes.
Yeah, well, that's the part that I was worried about. As soon as we went on soft kit, it was like, oh, this is supposed to be a 6-minute video.
No.
Probably about 5 minutes ago. But yeah, weapons wise.
Rise.
I know my pronunciation. So essentially, I've tried to lay them out in a time period. A lot of them cross over and such, but this is pretty much Dark Age. Moving on to the rapier is about.
And we're back. So we were saying, Dark Age is all the way through to about 16th century.
Yep. And we're now on the weapons, which is what people will most likely want to see. I can't remember where we were, but I'm just going to jump into it. So these are a variety of my collection of weapons, starting from Dark Ages, moving on to maybe the 1700s.
But we have to say, these are they're representative of what would be in England.
Yes.
Obviously.
Yes. All of my equipment is of the time. Now there are things like there's a German Saleh and such. That's because we were buying a lot of things from Germany. A lot of blades were coming from Germany as well. So you will see things from.
But you got an English Saleh there.
Yep. But it is primarily England that we focus on. So yeah, so you got standard axe, say-axe, broadsword, falchion, arming sword, which is what knights would typically have.
But this is a hand and a half.
It is a hand and a half, but it's an arming sword is the technical name for this type. Dagger, you've got a not a long sword, a two-handed
Bastard sword.
technically, I suppose. I'm not entirely sure
No,
what.
no, the hand and a half are bastard swords.
Yeah.
Well, it's just the two-handed. There's no doubt about it. You can easily get two hands on here without even going onto the pommel.
Yeah, but the blade's shorter than what a longsword would have been. So I'm still not entirely sure what it would be classed as, but something for me to do. And then of course you have a rapier over there. Again, this is about probably half of my collection.
Mm-hmm.
And these, I love them so. I really do. This is sort. There's something
You
romantic.
go to bed with them, don't you?
Caress them and clean them and file them down. Swords. There is something romantic about swords, isn't it? The whole knighthoods, the whole heroism and such. There is something very romantic about.
Yeah. Now with the axes, they tend to be made out. Well, actually, modern blades, reenactment, they're all made out of sprung steel, aren't they?
Yes.
Mild steel's too soft; it will bend without. Then you've got all the hardening process. But for modern reenactment, it's safer to use sprung steel, although it's not authentic. But it does mean there's a lot less chance of it, as long as it's tempered correctly,
Yeah.
of it shattering and.
I mean, especially with the earlier swords and such, it's quite common for them to actually bend. A lot of them were made out of iron to begin with. I mean, the broadsword here would have been much better made than those swords.
But the carbon element in them, it's not like now where we can control how much carbon goes in.
Yeah, and there's a certain randomness about forging as well, especially the earlier times.
Mm-hmm.
By later points, we've become very skilled at blacksmithing and such. A sword like this would have also been pattern welded as well. Pattern welded would have been great, but that would have been, there was a 50% chance that you'd get it right, and if you didn't, you'd have to be completely scrapped, and that was a couple of weeks of work.
Yeah, because it can take like a couple of.
It's not until what process of forging is it? It's not until it's almost at the very end.
You're getting the bars. You're twisting them, welding them together. Then you're getting more bars, repeating the same process 3 or 4 times. Then getting all of that and putting it together. And only then do you start the process of drawing it out.
Yeah, and you still don't know what it is until I think it's like 2 steps later. It's almost all the work.
It's almost all the way through before you
you
find out whether you've actually, for example, you've got an impurity, some impurities trapped in between the layers of steel.
Yeah.
Or you've got
and just
you haven't cleaned out all the air. You haven't hammed out the air, and I suppose it's possibly the testing once it's sharpened.
I think it might
testing
even be
how hardness.
the sharpened period that you actually discover it. But
then all the work's gone. There's no way of resurrecting it, is there?
No, and you can't break it down again, can you?
No.
You can melt it down and recycle it as something else, but not as a sword.
Yeah.
So all that metal has been wasted. It's really fair to say that apart from materials and a few process in the making process of it, and of course sharpening and such, they're pretty spot on these as to the authentic and everything.
They're actually a bit heavier, aren't they? They're ever so slightly heavier because we don't have to. I mean, you think it's yours. You can see on the blade that it's what 3 millimeters.
No, it's more than that.
But 3 millimeters, 3 4 millimeters. No, it's not 4. But 3 millimeters wide. And obviously, but if it's sharpened, that would go down to the micron. But taking that steel off would affect the weight. But where's the balancing point on that is actually really good, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, this is a Binns sword.
Paul Binns is an amazing swordsmith.
And it's almost impossible to get anything from him at the moment because he's got like 2 years of back orders, roughly about there. but that would change if from this point on, which is about right, that started getting sharpened because the weight would have changed.
Yeah, because
So the balance would have changed.
Because to actually, if I wanted to stab you in the stomach through to your spine, I only actually need about that much of the blade. So to sharpen it all the way is almost not needed, is it? And of course, every time you block,
It
you
damages
destroy the edge.
I mean, there's a reason why you see, I mean, Japanese katanas, they were sharpened perfectly, but there's a reason why they never blocked with them.
No.
And that was because if you did, you would destroy the blade, and that would have been that blade scrapped. So what?
And of course, in Europe, we would have carbon steel. The whole blade would be carbon steel.
Yeah.
Whereas with Japan, the reason why their sword making techniques are so advanced is because their quality of steel is actually really low. They've got hardly any high quality steel.
Yeah.
So the cutting edge, the cutting edge on the katana would be the only piece with the carbon steel. Everything else would be mild steel.
Yeah.
And so they would protect that edge at all means. At all means. Also, a knight going into battle he'd probably start off with, you know, his sword and stuff, have a backup dagger or something like that. But you know more about the samurais. How many blades did they have on them?
Samurais typically would have always had two on them, the main katana and the accompanying side blade. But they rarely had metal armour because, of course, metal is so rare and valuable. It seems like a bit of a waste. Only really high up people would have. And of course, if there's less armour, then it's easier to just cut through someone, which means a finer edge blade. And the finer edge blade can't handle blade on blade contact, so you would avoid blocking with the sword. And that's why Japanese sword plate is very manoeuvrable compared to European. Because of course, we're in full armour, it doesn't matter if you hit us.
Yeah, and the fact is, with armour, you hit someone in plate armour with again, shout out to Hollywood, someone's wearing plate armour and you hit them with a sword, it's going to sound like you've rung a bell, but frankly, that's it.
Well, there's so much
padding. You're going to scratch the surface,
Bells,
but it will not cut the steel, will it?
No. The way a bell works is, of course, the inside's hollow, but the armour, in order for the armour to work, it has to be shaped to you. I mean, very few of us have the money to have custom-made armour.
Yeah.
What we usually do is...
£20,000, something like that.
Yeah, what we tend to do is we get the armour and actually hammer it to fit us. And it is designed, the whole point of the armour, if you can't move in it, it's because it's not made for you and because it's not shaped to you. It's not because the armour is difficult to wear or too heavy. The way it's designed is to sit on your body to complement your body's strengths, your spine, your hips, your shoulders.
And a properly made set of armour for yourself is actually, they kind of, the weight of the steel sits on itself, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's also so tight to you that actually it's almost like wearing a wetsuit. So although you can feel the weight of it, I mean, don't get me wrong, you're wearing
you feel
a
the weight.
lot of steel.
Yeah.
You can feel the weight. But, you know, we've seen on the battlefield, we see guys that are wearing custom-made armour, and frankly, anything you can do in a pair of jeans and a t-shirt, they can do in the armour.
Yeah, I mean, do you remember that guy at Tewkesbury with the roses and such? The way he's swinging his body around, the fluidity of his motions.
There was no, and he was running. You can sprint in armour. There's none of this clonking around like RoboCop.
And I mean, there's a huge generational gap at the moment. But no offence to the guys in Reenactment, but how old are these guys? Really old guys, and they're still fighting in full plate and such. And they've been doing it for most of their lives, but they've also shaped their armour to them, and it's nothing to them. They can do it easily. I mean,
the best way of getting through armour is actually hammer, mace. Well, the kinetic energy that passes through does the damage. Stoving in the steel, so it then starts to push on the bones and break the bones.
Well, by this point, I mean, when chainmail started getting very popular, things like swords started to become obsolete, and they had to change tactics. And in Europe, it became more beating your opponent up, trying to do kinetic damage through the armour. And by the point of the 15th century, you start seeing more hammers on the field than swords.
And these daggers here, this would go to a long point. The whole point of this would, you know, this could probably be a parrying dagger as well.
Yeah.
But also getting close, get into the gaps of the armour.
I mean,
you know,
the visor going through the eye.
The eye slit, yeah. Getting through the eye slit, you're going to have a bevel that's going to be coming right up underneath the helmet. So getting through to the neck, it's impossible.
I mean,
going through the eye slits.
That's a very poor example, but a bollock dagger and a few others, the blades would be about less than half the thickness of that, wouldn't they? But roughly the same length.
And a rondel, we don't actually have a rondel here, but a rondel dagger, rather than the pommel being a disc that way, the disc was like that. And it was designed so you could put it on and actually use the heel of your other hand and your weight to actually push through. And those type of daggers were really good. They were very effective getting through the gaps on armour, but they're also good with mail of getting through the tiny little holes in the links. And as you push through, just as the steel thickens, it pops the rivets.
We'll have to do a video on it because it's like any industry, isn't it? Warfare has never changed. You come up with a new weapon and then a new defence is developed against it, and then you come up with a new weapon against that defence. And it is an example. I mean, this chainmail here is what we call bolt chainmail. This came into play because after chainmail came in and slashing became useless, they started focusing on the thrust to punch through the rings.
Yeah.
So they started bolting the rings to prevent that. So of course, a new weapon would have to.
But then it became heavier, didn't it?
Yeah. We'd have to do a video because that's like an hour video.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it already. That's our subject.
Yeah.
I mean, rapiers when they came in, that was when armour started becoming obsolete because you had cannons and muskets going on the field, and armour slows you down so much that a cannonball aimed in the general location. I mean, people were marching in ranks of 4 by 20. It's an easy target to shoot, and if they're sticking together, because it is sticking together in a war of the 15th down Dark Age, even 16th century, you need your teammates, your companions with you, or else you'll die.
Yeah.
So you're in those units, and you're an easy target to shoot with a cannon. So armour became pretty obsolete by that point. And rapiers can also go through chainmail because they're sharpened to a razor point. So you start seeing armour die off by the 1700s.
But the thing with rapiers, that the hole in the body was actually very minimal, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And as they sliced through, again, the damage inside was very minimal. But it would punch a long way through, and it was razor sharp.
Yeah, I mean, what you're aiming for is the heart, lungs, or stomach.
Absolutely, absolutely. But the thing is, people may not go down straight away.
Yeah.
More likely, they would die later on from internal bleeding.
Yeah, I mean, what was it? I think it was the Battle of Bosworth. I was fighting this young lady, and she managed to get a thrust on me that got through my armour and just jabbed me in the stomach.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have felled me at all, but I'm now bleeding internally.
You would have been in agony. Apparently, a sword to the gut is very, very painful.
It's a long, painful death.
Depending how much damage is being done, it will take a day to 2 days to die, because it's a very slow bleed, unless they obviously hit an artery.
You're bleeding inside your stomach and your stomach acids and such.
And it swells and...
So yeah, I would have gone through, and because the way the armour is squeezing you in your adrenaline, I might not have actually noticed. It might only have been when I undid my armour and my body relaxed that I felt the damage and started seeing the repercussions of it. So yeah, I mean, we'll have to do a video on how say hits and such.
Yeah, well, we'll have to do a video as well of arming up.
Yeah.
Get someone to a video as well. Strap you in.
To talk about, isn't there?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And at the moment, we're just talking about weapons and armour. We aren't talking about anything else.
We've got a tent.
Yeah. Not only that, Andreas also does carpentry, which he did through reenactment, historical carpentry.
I just wasn't willing to pay the money for some of the handmade stuff out there, so I started teaching myself.
Just to clarify, and I hope Hannah's not watching, instead of paying £50 for a bowl, he decided to pay £100 and something for an axe to make it himself.
You're not helping. Just wait until you get married. You're absolutely stuffed.
Well, my logic is I will buy it all now and then export.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but I think it might be good to wrap this up for this time.
Yeah, I will say this. As we said, there is so much here to talk about. We wouldn't have a clue where to begin. So please comment on what you'd like to see first.
Let's know. Actually, a lot of the comments we've had has actually been about the reenactment stuff. So reply, see us on Facebook, send us a comment, or comment below. Let us know what you want to see.
Yeah,
we have so much stuff. If we did a video covering everything, it would probably be 3 to 4 hours long.
and it'd be scratching it. We wouldn't be able to go into detail with anything, would we? That would be just glossing over it. And yeah, there is so much to talk about.
So yeah, but we're going to do some videos as well of how reenactment weapons, the sort of damage that they can do. That although, yes, they are reenactment,
they may be blunt, but they are.
It's still steel. It's still heavy. It's still steel. How do you make an axe safe? Yes, it's not sharp, but it's still a kinetic energy weapon.
Yeah.
I hit you with that hard.
Yeah,
I'm going to do almost as much damage as if it was razor sharp.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I mean, the majority of these weapons were designed as kinetic weapons. The broadsword in particular, when chainmail came in, it was designed to break bones, to do internal bleeding, to cave in skulls. That was its main purpose. So these are still very dangerous. And we train constantly. I mean, I train every 2 weeks minimum. You train whenever you can.
We're looking at that HEMA club in Cambridge to learn how to do. HEMA stands for Historical European Martial Arts. So we're thinking about joining that, aren't we?
Yeah.
To learn how to properly sword fight.
Yeah, because
correctly.
during winter in particular, we can't really go outside, and you need a large hall. When do you get the time and such? It's the most busiest time. So an indoor place with instructors would be definitely beneficial.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, comment below. Tell us what you want to see. We're going to be doing more videos on reenactment stuff, as I said, and doing an arming of a night and stuff like that. You can actually see the different layers that go on as someone is built up, ready for battle. But yeah, thank you ever so much to everyone that subscribed and liked our videos. Please, share the word, spread it out. Comment below, like us, subscribe, more.
Keep darting between you and the camera. Thanks, guys.
Brilliant. We'll see you next time.